Thank you. I'm going to call to order the Operations and Safety Committee, and we are convened as of 5:33 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. I would respectfully ask everyone attending this meeting to mute yourself unless you are recognized to speak. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Please note that under the current circumstances, the official meetings of the RTD Board of Directors are being held remotely in the interest of public health, safety, and welfare. For the immediate future, the official meetings of the Board of Directors will be held via Zoom and will be audio and video recorded. The meeting recordings, along with the unofficial minutes of the meetings, will be posted as soon as practicable on the board's website. Visit rtd-denver.com and scroll to the bottom of the page for the link to the Board of Directors page. Directors and members of staff, for the sake of the record, if you would like to be acknowledged during tonight's proceedings, I would ask you to please raise your virtual hand and wait for me to call on you before proceeding to speak. Speaking out of turn will only add confusion to the record and to the proceedings. Directors and staff participating by phone can also raise their virtual hands to indicate that they would like to speak by pressing *9. To toggle your mute settings on the phone, press *6. I would now like to take the roll for the Operations and Safety Committee. Director Bouquet.
Present.
Director Lewis.
Present, sorry.
That's okay. Director Rosenthal.
Present.
Director Tisdale.
Present.
And Director Williams.
Good evening, I'm here.
Very good. All members of the committee are present. At RTD, safety is paramount. I'd like to begin this meeting with a short safety briefing. As a reminder, the Transit Security Administration, TSA, has extended the federal mask mandate requirement for public transportation until March 18, 2022. The federal mask requirement states that individuals must wear a face covering while waiting for and while riding public transportation, to include airports and aircraft, train stations and trains, bus stops and buses. The first item on our agenda this evening is a selection of the committee chair and vice chair. As discussed by the executive committee, for just this first meeting, I will facilitate the election, and once both seats are filled, turn over the meeting to the new committee chair. Unlike the executive committee election process, which uses secret ballots for the election of board officers, for committee leadership appointments, we will proceed with open nominations, discussion, and vote by the full committee. We will begin with the selection of the chair and then the vice chair. We will allow up to 3 minutes for those board members who nominate a candidate, those who second nominations, if any, and any other members who wish to speak regarding the candidates to speak. I will then call for a vote, and the candidate with the most votes will be appointed. If only one director is nominated, the committee may proceed by acclamation, and that director will be appointed. I will start by asking for nominations for committee chair. Director Williams, I see your hand is raised.
Thank you, Chair Busick. I would like to nominate Director Paul Rosenthal for Chair of the Operations and Safety Committee. Paul has been the Vice Chair of our previously named Operations and Customer Service Committee for the last year. He's participated in a wide variety of discussions related to the work that the committee addresses, including but not limited to the purchase of new vehicles, the support of our paratransit service, the staffing in the operations group, and more. Paul's service on the RTD Executive Committee has been exemplary. His background in the state legislature gives him experience in committees of this nature and in the parliamentary processes that are involved. His work in the diverse neighborhoods in his district has given him insight into RTD's daily service, both bus routes and train lines. Finally, as a longtime teacher with an open and collegial style, he will run respectful and inclusive meetings, characteristics that are especially important given the work that we do. I think he's the best person on this committee to lead us into what promises to be an unusual year. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Director Williams. Are there any comments or seconds to this nomination? Seeing none, I will ask if there are any further nominations for the position of committee chair. Seeing none, and with only Director Rosenthal having been nominated as committee chair, I will ask if anyone is opposed to appointing Director Rosenthal to the position of committee chair by acclamation. Is there any opposition? Seeing none, Director Rosenthal, you are the committee chair for the Operations and Safety Committee. I'll finish off with the vice chair position, if that's okay, Director Rosenthal, and then
Most certainly.
you're up. Okay. I will now ask for nominations for committee vice chair. Director Williams, your hand is still raised. Did you know that?
No, I did. I'm gonna put it down.
Okay. Director Tisdale, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I would respectfully nominate Kate Williams to serve as vice chair of this committee, principally for the reason that her stellar service in the position of chair in the committee in the past has given her a tremendous amount of experience, knowledge, expertise relative to assisting our newly elected chair, Director Rosenthal, as the chair of this committee. She has in the past been extremely adept at being able to process matters that have come before this very important committee. And I think now with a streamlined structure, I believe that she can equally facilitate and assist in the processing of the business that comes before this committee. And I would urge us to elect Kate Williams as our vice chair of this committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for that nomination, Director Tisdale. Is there any discussion or any seconds to this nomination?
I second the nomination.
Thank you, Director Rosenthal. And are there any further nominations for the position of vice chair of the Operations and Safety Committee? Seeing none, and with only Director Williams having been nominated as committee vice chair, I will ask if anyone is opposed to appointing Director Williams to the position of committee vice chair by acclamation. Director Tisdale, your hand is still raised. Thank you. Seeing no opposition to appointment by acclamation, Director Williams is the vice chair. Chair Rosenthal, I will now turn the remainder of the meeting over to you. Thank you very much for letting me participate.
Absolutely. And thank you, Mr. Chair, for your leadership. Very much appreciate that, and for leading this election tonight. And thank you very much, members, for having that faith in me to allow me to become the chair of this committee for the next year. And look forward to working with you very much. And as Director Williams said, I hope to lead this committee into a while we can have, serious and important discussions, and sometimes we will have strong disagreements, I'm hoping that we can also be collegial and understand that we are all on the same team. And I may be chair, but your opinions are of utmost importance. So I hope that you will always feel free to share those opinions, and we can hold great meetings that really flesh out issues to the extent that they need to be fleshed out. So very much look forward to working with you all. Thank you so much. So let's move on with the agenda. And let me scroll down here a little bit. All righty. Okay, so the public comment period is a new addition to our committee agendas, and I would like to open it to anyone who would like to address the committee. If you would like to speak and have not done so, please either raise your... Oh, wait a second. Did we go through that already? No, we did not go through that already. My apologies. I would like to open it to anyone who would like to address the committee. If you wish to speak, have not already done so, please either raise your virtual hand or press *9 on your phone. Staff will unmute you when it is your turn to speak. If you are dialed in, press *6 to toggle your mute settings. Please bear in mind that by participating in this process, you are being recorded. So if you do not wish to be recorded, then your comments will have to be submitted in writing, and you will not have the opportunity to speak this evening. If any speaker has documentation or reference materials for the committee, please email those materials to the board office at the following email address: rtd.boardoffice@rtd-denver.com. During this time, the committee will not offer comments or responses. Directors or staff may contact speakers following their comments if they raise matters that lend themselves to follow-up. Speakers should begin their remarks by stating their names. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. Speakers, please refrain from profane or obscene speech. Direct your comments to the committee as a whole and refrain from any personal attacks. So let's see, do we, Tai Shrey or other staff, do we have any speakers tonight who would like to participate?
I see one person in the queue currently, and that's Paolo Sarazano.
Great. All righty. So Paolo, if you would like to participate, you're more than welcome to begin. By the way, I just have to start off with thank you very much for your voicemail today. I was at work. I did not have a chance to return your phone call. And I did respond by email though. So please do also feel free to speak tonight and also email me and I will forward your comments to the board. So without further ado, Mr. Solorzano.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, hi, this is Paulo Solorzano again. Calling for, it's been a few times that I've mentioned this publicly, but yeah, and I think it's great that Paul Rosenthal is on the operations committee. Thank you for bringing up how important operations and just general upkeep is with the system. I am just, again, bringing up the same point. I'm going to focus on just the light rail schedules, the physical light rail schedules, stop signage at the sites. I've been putting in customer service complaints and reaching out to several board members. And also now I've started talking to operators and field supervisors as well as police officers on site. Regarding these incorrect signage, they are misleading people. They have not been saying the correct thing. They're very random. I've sent an email out. I can definitely send it to everybody else. And Carl Shoemaker's been contacting me back. But again, I do think that this is a civil rights issue. People are missing their important appointments, a safety issue, a lot. The signage is misleading, and it has been for the last 4 years. And the email notifications are also coming out. You know, we have cancellations going on, and I received 25 emails of late or canceled routes every day sometimes or more. And that's not even the entire system. But when this is happening and there's misleading signs, then it's absolutely a security issue, a safety issue, because you end up being stopped at I'll end it with this. You just end up being stranded at stop, you know, like on Colfax or even light rail stations. And that's happened quite often to people. So I'll just end at that. And if anybody wants to follow up with me, I will send you guys the email as well. And thanks again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Solorzano. And I know you have been a longtime advocate in the community. So please do feel free to always keep in touch and to speak at our board meetings and also email us and call us as well. And look forward to receiving your correspondence with some of your further comments. Are there, Barbara, are there any other participants in the queue?
I see none in the queue.
Okie dokie. With no other participants in the queue, we're going to close the public comment period at this time. The agenda header is also a new addition to our committee agenda outline. In the future, if the committee has outside presenters or speakers, they will fall under this category and can address the committee at the beginning of the meeting instead of at the end. With the process improvement change, the committee will also be more thoughtful and considerate of our outside presenters' time. So recommended actions. We have 3 recommended actions on the agenda this evening. And our first recommended action is to exercise a contract 19 FK002 options to purchase 117 40-foot and 25 30-foot transit buses. Do we have a motion?
So moved, Director Williams.
And do we have a second?
Second, Director Tisdale.
Thank you, Director Tisdale. So I heard Directors Williams and Tisdale. At this time, I would like staff to present any pertinent information regarding the action. Noting that the action was included in the packet, directors have had time to ask questions of staff offline. Please raise your virtual hand and wait to be recognized to speak. Please state your name for the record each time you speak, or I will just call on you, and that'll be recognition. At this time, I would like the directors who wish to speak to raise your hands. I'll call on you for directors or staff calling in the meeting. If you wish to speak, press *9. All righty, let's open that up. Okay, any directors would like to say something or have a comment or a question?
Mr. Chairman, point of order, would it not be appropriate to have staff first?
Oh, okay, my bad. My apologies. Yes, I'm sorry. So staff, who would like to present on this proposal?
Mr. Rosenthal, if I may, I would like to request that Fred Worthen, the Assistant General Manager of Bus Operations, present the staff report to you all this evening. So with that, I will introduce Mr. Worthen. Please go forward, sir.
Greetings, honorable board members. Fred Worthen, Assistant General Manager of Bus. Staff is requesting the Board of Directors grant General Manager and CEO Deborah A. Johnson authority to exercise options and amend contract 19 FK002 with Gillig to provide 117 40-foot and 25 30-foot transit buses, spare parts, and training for a total price not to exceed $70,271,993. These buses will replace existing buses in our current fleet that are 16 years old and have reached the end of their useful life. Exercising the option for the purchase of these buses will continue our existing fleet replacement plan. Funding for the purchase is included in the 2022 budget. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Members, sorry, I jumped the gun a little earlier and didn't mean to go straight to questions. Thank you, Mr. Worthen, for that presentation and for your hard work and the entire team's hard work. So yeah, let's start off with Director Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Fred. I really appreciate your presentation. I just have a quick question for you, and General Manager Johnson, you might actually be better suited to answer this question. I know it's come up a number of times in this committee and asked when we are looking to purchase additional fleet, specifically our buses, is if we are looking at making those, are purchasing electric buses, excuse me. And so maybe wanted to get an update in that regard.
So if I may, Mr. Chair and Director Lewis, recognizing that we do have options available, and I'm going to yield the floor to Mr. Worthen in a moment, but wanted to provide some context. I know there's an interest, and we are too committed in reference to creating a sustainable environment where we can reduce vehicle miles traveled. That is done with the diesel fleet as well. Recognizing that we do have a service area in excess of 2,300 miles, and we have a bus fleet that spans beyond the FTA guidance relative to the useful life of the transit vehicle. We currently have a contract that is open that this board approved back in 2020 that has additional options. And more so to the point that you've raised relative to having the appropriate infrastructure, the operating environment to sustain that, we are currently looking at that as we go forward. So with that, I want to ask Mr. Worthen to further expound, because he and I have talked about this matter, and I want to ensure that the entire complement of this committee has the benefit of having that information and what we're doing going forward to help plan for a transition to a type of zero emission technology. As it's not about the propulsion system, it's about how we can best operate in an environment and be sustainable. With that, Mr. Worthen, if you please go ahead and address further.
Thank you. Thank you for your question, Director Lewis. So staff evaluates agency needs each time we engage in a capital purchase. Relating to fleet purchases, this includes the maintenance and operational costs, service needs, financial capabilities. Our existing bus fleet is 16-year-old and is becoming increasingly difficult and costly to maintain. Thus, there's a need to replace our existing fleet. In this case, about 90% of the newly procured buses will be allocated to our contractors. RTD does not own our contractor facilities. The current fixed route contracts with providers are 3-year in duration with 2 one-year options. A bus is expected to be kept in revenue service for 12 years. This is the FTA's service life policy, as CEO Johnson mentioned. Underneath our current operating conditions and the disparate operating environments that we're in, it's not feasible to electrify our contractor facilities as the agency doesn't have the financial means nor the adequate timing to support a transition to zero emission technology. A few other points, an electric bus is approximately twice the cost of a diesel bus. There are also significant costs associated with facility upgrades to support an electric fleet, such as charging and electrical infrastructure. And finally, electric buses have operational constraints. Our existing diesel fleet can travel around 600 miles on a single tank of fuel. Electric buses have a top range for a single charge of around 200 miles. Keeping in mind that HVAC and other ancillary devices draw on the energy, so this range can be further limited. These range limitations have impacts on our daily operations that require a new operational model for a large-scale implementation. As an agency, we are working on a long-term electrification plan. We have supported third-party consultants to address challenges and complexities associated with large-scale fleet electrification. Our new fleet of 17 electric buses approved for purchase by the board last year will also be critical in developing and refining these plans. Hopefully that answers your questions.
It does thoroughly, actually. I really appreciate that response. A few follow-ups. The first, you said our contractors, you purchased these buses for our contractors, and we have 3-year contracts with 1-year options. What
Yes.
year are we in?
Each contract is in a different year, so we
Okay.
don't do all 4 contracts at once. We have 4 independent contracts. We just issued the last of the 4 contracts last year, if I remember correctly. We will have options coming up shortly, but we do not have any of those up for bid for a while yet.
Okay, thank you so much. And essentially, the contractors have shared, the limitations in terms of, well, I know you all have no authority over the operations or how our contractors operate their facilities, but there being barriers. If you were to purchase electric vehicles, they would essentially be rendered useless to our contractors because they don't have the infrastructure to be able to maintain those.
That is correct, and that is part of what we're looking at, as I talked about, looking at our large-scale fleet electrification plan, is how do we transition over to be able to have our contractors to operate electric vehicles in the future.
I see. And I really appreciate that. I recognize, and of course, I don't want to be in hindrance, but I recognize that it's definitely much more expensive, at least for a car, to take care of an old car than it is for you just to go buy a new one from a maintenance perspective sometimes. And so I do appreciate that. And I hear you. And I just wanted to know more about the work that you all have been doing in terms of electrification. And the final question is, how far along, and maybe you don't have a specific timeline, but when might the board expect to see a comprehensive plan, if you will? I don't know if that's the proper verbiage for an electrification plan.
So if I could take that question,
Sure.
Director Lewis. So as Mr. Worthen indicated, one thing's for certain, we do have subfleets of zero emission buses, and the initial subfleet was used on the 16th Street Mall. It's
Right.
hard to garner appropriate data to see how these buses would work in our overarching environment.
Mhm.
So in relationship to your last action relative to the 17 buses that we're going to purchase, as you may recall, we're going to use those throughout the district on a myriad of routes. We are going to be doing data collection so we can see how they perform, recognizing that we are in an operating environment, you know, that has varied weather in reference to snow, other types of, you know, we have summers that can be warm as we look at global warming, which is a clear-cut nexus to why we need to look at sustainable operating options as we go forward. We need to basically be able to look to see how those buses are operating, use that data in conjunction with utilizing information drawn upon by our third-party consultant as they look at route modeling. We have an expansive service area, and Mr. Worthen spoke to that, with the disparate operating systems in reference to the vast systems that we have. So we have to ensure that we have an understanding of how we can leverage our energy. Would we be using inductive charging, for instance, with the longer routes, or can we get them back to their base so they could charge midway through? And so all of these different elements have to come into play. So realistically, as we talk about a plan, we have to start working on it. And if I were to say where we might be as we go forward, recognize we have Reimagine RTD that takes all this into consideration, we could have some preliminary understanding within 24 to 36 months or sooner, but there's a lot of different factors to take in consideration. Mr. Worthen, would you agree with that response?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. And I'm speaking from a place of knowing, doing a transition to a zero emission bus fleet at a previous agency in a previous part of my career. So that's why I just want to make sure that Mr. Worthen was in sync with what I'm saying from his experience here and what we're doing. So thank you very much for the question.
No, thank you all. It was very thorough. Again, I really appreciate the information that you all have provided. And I appreciate the updates and being honest about what the barriers are in your next steps. So thank you so much.
And thank you very much for those thoughtful and insightful questions, Director Lewis. And I think to build on that, just to note for anyone watching and also for the directors, in the memo announcing this contract, it does discuss the reduction in greenhouse gases produced by this fleet, the new fleet that we will be purchasing of buses versus the current fleet. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Director Bouquet, looks like you have a question or set of questions. Go on ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. My question is just kind of regarding, I might need a little more description regarding, so I'm reading the first part where it says the purchase of 46 40-foot transit buses with an option for additional 264 buses over a 5-year period. Could we just kind of get a little bit more information of it? So the contract that we're voting on right now, does this include the 264 buses or just the 46?
I'm sorry, may I proceed to answer that?
Oh, please, yeah, just go ahead and discuss.
Okay, thank you. Yes, the opening paragraph is actually the initial contract award itself. Okay. We are actually just purchasing off of options from the 200 and however many options were awarded at that particular point. I apologize.
Okay, just clarifying.
Yes.
I was like, that would be a pretty good gap. Do you know where we are so far in that contract? My apologies.
I do not, but if you'd like me to gather some more information on that, I can tell you. I can follow up and send it out to the complete board.
That would be preferred if possible.
Okay.
Thank you. And then my final question is regarding the lifespan of these 46 buses, or how long we're expecting them to be operational till.
So basically, in reference to transit vehicles as specified in previous responses with the Federal Transit Administration, typically a transit bus, the asset is looked at as being operable from 12 to 15 years or 500,000 miles. And recognizing that our current fleet, as Mr. Worthen stated, is at 16, we are basically exceeding the useful life as we go forward. And optimally, as we look at these, we would like to see our fleet replacement plan be at 12 years.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Bouquet, and thank you, Mr. Worthen and General Manager Johnson. Questions, Director Tisdale.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. More a comment than a question. I think the question raised by Director Lewis is a very important one and one that we need to make a record on, and I appreciate very much the response from General Manager CEO Johnson as well as from Assistant General Manager Worthen relative to that. My own observation is relative to the conversion to electric. Obviously, the range of those buses, electric buses, is impacted significantly in the Regional Transportation District of Denver by virtue of our tremendous temperature swings, where we get 30 to 40 degree swing in a day on the ambient temperature, which has a huge impact on the life and the distance that one can get out of an electric battery. In addition to that, elevation changes that we have are significant in the Denver metro area. This almost, the way I describe it, is 2,400 square mile area, which is basically the size of the state of Delaware that we're sending these buses around, and the vast distances that are to be covered. There is continuous quality improvement going on regarding batteries, and that improvement will yield substantially better opportunities for us in the future. And I think that what we're doing now is saying, let us proceed with what we know works, and with, as the board report indicates, a significant improvement in emissions from these vehicles, and continue to study how batteries are being improved such that we can, in the future, continue with a plan for electric conversion. And that concludes my comments on this item at this time, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Tisdale. And as someone who owns a plug-in hybrid vehicle myself, I certainly have noticed the drop in the number of miles per charge for my vehicle, and also understanding that, obviously a bus, especially a new one, electric one, is certainly a different technology, but nevertheless. So Director Busick, looks like you had a comment.
Yes, thanks. I have a question for Mr. Worthen. I recall back in 2020, as the pandemic was just upon us, we heard some discussion about the availability of some UV lighting systems that were helpful in killing viruses and potentially air filtration. Are there any of those systems workable, available, and will any of these buses have? Thanks.
Thank you for that question, Director Busick. Yes, they will be equipped with driver shields, and they will also have the air filtration systems equipped as part of the purchase.
And those lights, those UV lights? No.
Yes, that's the air filtration system.
Oh, it is. Oh, cool.
Yes.
Oh, exciting. That's good.
Yes.
What a new world we're in. Thanks.
All righty. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Any other directors would like to ask a question, make a comment or suggestion or what have you? Looks like that's everyone. All righty. Thank you. Are there any no votes on this action? Okay. There were no votes, so this measure is passed. Our second recommended action is the 2022 Boulder HOP Agreement. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All righty, so we have a move by Director Tisdale and a second by Director Bouquet. So at this time, I would ask staff to present any pertinent information regarding this action, noting that the action was included in the packet. Directors have had time to ask questions of staff online. Please raise your virtual hand, wait to be recognized to speak, and please state your name for the record. Who would like to present?
Point of order.
Yes.
Thank you. That you just addressed my point of order. I was assuming you were going to hear from staff first again, and then
I'm just going off of the script. So once we've heard from staff, then we'll have everybody speak. All righty. Who would like to speak for staff?
Chair Rosenthal, it's Fred Worthen, Assistant General Manager of Bus Operations.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Worthen.
Thank you, sir. Staff is requesting for the Board of Directors to authorize General Manager and CEO Deborah A. Johnson to enter into an agreement with the City of Boulder to provide funding to support HOP service in an amount not to exceed $1,356,928. RTD has a number of cost share partnerships with several jurisdictions throughout the district to assist with supplemental transportation services. RTD has been in partnership with the City of Boulder since 1994 to assist with sharing the cost for provision of HOP services. I do want to mention that ridership on the HOP has improved since CU resumed in-service in-person classes. In April of 2021, average daily ridership was roughly about 600 passengers per day at the high point. In October of 2021, ridership rose to about 1,200 passengers per day. This is still roughly 60% of pre-COVID levels when you compare to 2019, when average daily ridership was 2,100. But we are happy to see the ridership rising on these services this fall. Funding for the agreement was included in the 2022 budget, and at that, I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Director Williams.
Thank you, Chair Rosenthal. Mr. Worthen and Ms. Johnson, Director Lynn Geisinger was unable to be at this meeting based on a previous commitment, but she asked me to please extend to the staff of RTD that the people in Boulder are very happy, government and those who work with us on the HOP, to have this process move forward, and that they appreciate all the support that we have given them. And she especially wanted to mention Erin Vallejos for the work that she has done on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Williams. I will say that Fred and his team in recognizing Erin Vallejos, she has been instrumental, and I know I have worked with her closely as it relates to the Marshall Fire, and she has done a yeoman's job in ensuring that we were providing support, as well as Greg Smith and other members of the team. I should stop calling names because I know it's a collective effort and I don't want to leave anybody out. So thank you very much for that acknowledgement to Fred and his team. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Director Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question. I haven't quite formulated it yet, but hear me out. I'm trying to reconcile service into Boulder with the update we had recently. I can't remember the months. They all kind of have blended at this point, regarding the formula funding and the conversation that we had with CDOT, that Boulder was going to work to essentially provide their own, fund their own transportation with the dollars that CDOT withheld from RTD. And so I'm trying to reconcile how we do that while also contributing $1.3 million to Boulder specific services. If it feels duplicative, but I might just be misunderstanding.
If I may, Mr. Chair, Director Lewis, that's a very great question. So keeping in mind the issue that you raised have to do with the American Rescue Plan Act and those dollars as it related to the County of Boulder wanting to become a direct recipient. Recognizing when we put forth our budget, those monies weren't incorporated in, and the specifics as relates to the allocation of those ARPA funds are geared toward continuity and reinstatement of transit services. The HOP service has been ongoing. And as relates to comments that you made in reference to holding funds, there really are no funds available. Just for everyone's edification, these are monies that have been allocated that have to be drawn down upon. So there's not a sense that there are monies that were being held for us. This was additional monies that we could utilize relative to rescue and relief. Recognizing, as it states in the board report, the level of service that we're providing is contingent upon the boardings and so forth. Really, in looking at the ARPA funds that we have yet to be able to claim for the continuity of additional service. In a sense, it's splitting hairs because we had already incorporated this service into our planning and had never halted in relationship to the service. It's a circular answer, but I hope that helps you in recognizing where we are, because it's difficult to explain, but it's straightforward because this wasn't one of the routes that was up for discussion. It was the additional services that had been halted.
That definitely helps. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other members would like to ask a question or make a comment? All right, seeing none, thank you very much, General Manager Johnson and Assistant General Manager Mr. Worthen for that presentation. Are there any no votes on this agreement, on this proposal? Okay, seeing none, the proposal passes. Moving on to our third recommended action. It is the 2022 DRCOG van pooling agreement. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve, Director Tisdale.
Second, Director Williams.
All right, we have a motion by Director Tisdale and a second by Director Williams. And I will ask staff to have any pertinent information regarding this action.
Thank you, Chair Rosenthal. Fred Worthen, Assistant General Manager of BUS again. Staff is requesting that the Board of Directors authorize General Manager and CEO Deborah A. Johnson to enter an agreement with the Denver Regional Council of Governments to provide funding to support van pools in an amount not to exceed $663,000. This is a continuation of our cost share partnerships. Ridership on the existing van pools has increased slightly. However, the number of van pools is still down in the program, but they are seeing some of our existing van pools gaining ridership themselves. Funding for the agreement was included in the 2022 budget, and with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Directors, any questions or comments? Director Tisdale.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I was on the DRCOG board pretty much from 2001 to 2015, and was always extremely proud of the fact that DRCOG put together an exceptional service with the Way to Go van pool program. And it was a delight long before I got on the RTD board to see that our Regional Council of Governments was taking affirmative steps to provide necessary services for transit for all of the workers in our area. And I'm delighted to see that RTD can continue to provide the support for that most essential program. So I am enthusiastically in support of this resolution. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Director Tisdale. Any other directors or perhaps General Manager or Mr. Worthen, any other thoughts? Okay, well, we'll end that discussion. Any no votes on this recommended action? Director Tisdale, your hand is still up. Okay, now it's down. So there are no votes. So this recommended action has passed. We have one discussion item on tonight's agenda, and this item is the May 2022 service change proposals. So is there a staff member who would like to present an update on that proposal or those rather service changes?
Yes, Mr. Chair, it's Michael Ford, COO. I'd like to present some information regarding the May 2022 service change proposals. By way of background, commensurate with the service change and voting process detailed in the collective bargaining agreement, the CBA, shared between the RTD and the Amalgamated Transit Union 1001, the May 2022 service change proposal facilitates both an opportunity for bus and rail to select new work assignments and the opportunity for service development staff to make adjustments to the operations plan for the transit network. Current system ridership trends are relatively stable, showing an overall increase in ridership with a customary drop in ridership associated with the holiday season. You will find that information in your packet, figure 1 in attachment B. However, operator availability challenges still exist, made worse by absenteeism issues related to COVID-19, making it more than difficult to both maintain system on-time performance and expand service offerings to customers. By way of discussion, following the 2021 through 2026 strategic plan relating most directly to customer excellence and recognizing the agency's people power problem, the proposals herein are directed at improving on-time performance, adhering to the CBA, and adjusting service levels to match anticipated summer ridership demand. As you may recall, the board adopted guidance for a proposed service change continues to be service performance evaluations based on established service standards, the effects on the overall integrity of the transit network and on transit-dependent markets, the availability of alternative services to affected riders, cost-effective distribution throughout the district and family of services, and the ability to enhance service when possible. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, benefits and services are provided without regard to race, color, or national origin. Also, disparate effects on low-income minority populations, responses to changes in the communities where services are provided. Given the current economic condition due to COVID-induced economic slowdown, the overarching guidance for the proposed May 2022 service changes comes from the board adopted guidance for COVID-19 budget reductions, especially principle number 3, which states, we will prioritize mobility for people who must depend on transit during the pandemic. We will strive to maximize mobility during the pandemic for those customers who most depend upon the services to access essential jobs and their necessities, while also keeping our community activity centers appropriately connected. So again, we just want to give you a briefing on that. There is a summary of changes in your packet in attachment A. We do have meetings, public hearings, February 3rd at 5 p.m., February 7th at 5 p.m., and February 8th at noon. There are more details in your packet. If you have any questions, I am partnered tonight with acting senior manager of service planning, Jesse Carter, and myself, and we'll be happy to take on any questions that you may have at this time. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Mr. Ford, and of course for your work and Mr. Carter's work and your entire team. I'm also grateful to the general manager, who has also led on meeting individually with each of us as directors, presenting some of the particulars of the service changes in our areas, as well as in the whole district. So a lot goes into these types of service changes. Are there any questions or comments from any directors? Director Bouquet.
Thanks very much, Chair. My question is going to be specifically regarding the Route P. I just am curious if we had a little bit more detail, kind of what that schedule adjustments would look like in regards of increasing on-time performance.
Go ahead and dialogue back and forth, okay?
Okay, thanks, Chair. This is Jesse Carter, and looking at the Route P and many of the other routes that have been identified for service adjustments for on-time performance, anything that falls below the RTD's standards for on-time performance, we're taking a hard look at prioritizing, of course, the ones with the lowest performance. Route P, we're aiming for a 90% on-time performance, and it's quite a bit below that right now in the 70s. And with a regional type route, we expect that higher performance, 90 and above. So we're looking at adding time to the schedule and adjusting the schedule so it arrives Civic Center in the AM more on time, and also leaves Civic Center in the evening peak on time as well.
would those peak times, would that 8 a.m. still be the goal?
The arrival time will remain the same. Those will be the goal, and we will be possibly backing up the leave times from the Parker area.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Director Bouquet. So let's go next to Director Tisdale.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I know that probably all of us on the board receive the text messages when runs have been canceled. And we have, as has already been addressed, a significant issue with our workforce, principally because of illnesses along with the overall and overarching problem of just finding enough operators. My phone blows up every day with our missed runs, and the one that particularly captures my attention because I just returned from the airport today after having driven my own car out there. I'm ashamed to say, but required to say, because I couldn't count on the A line to get me to the airport on Sunday when I was flying somewhere for business, and when I returned today, having concluded that business. And I'm wondering if we have any sense relative to, particularly as I say, it's the train runs that I'm noticing more than anything, to a plan of adjusting schedules on these to make it more realistic. If I know there's going to be a train that is going to take me from Union Station to the airport, I'll plan on that. And if it means I have to wait longer at the airport than I might like, that's fine. At least I know I can take the train. But if it's sort of a shot in the dark of get to Union Station and hope that we'll be able to man that run, it's a difficult thing if you're, particularly if you're billing clients for your time, to do that. So I know it's a significant problem. I know you're aware of it. I know you're trying to address it, but I'm wondering if we can give the public some communication, perhaps through this meeting and other means as well, as to what we're doing to address that particular problem. In the past, we had a policy of mandating overtime, and we have, I think, very appropriately and wisely moved away from that policy of mandating. But at the same time, should we not give people a more solid sense of what they really can rely upon when they're trying, for example, to get to the airport?
So Mr. Carter and Mr. Ford, if I can address Director Tisdale's question. Director Tisdale, that's a very good question. And as you talk about the missed service on the A line, that missed service is actually not due to operator availability. That service is actually impacted by the requirement we have from the Federal Railroad Administration due to the fact that we're operating commuter rail and we have to have a second crew member. Right. The second crew member aspect of it is through a third party, which is Allied Universal. And recognizing that those are frontline positions, we have had a tremendous problem in reference to having adequate personnel to serve as a second crew member. So it hasn't been due to our scheduling or the operator aspect, it's having that second crew member. I will say that recognizing we are all, and you indicated this as well, in a place where it's hard to come by employees, especially in service-oriented positions, we have basically been having supplemental staff serve as that second crew member to get out as much service as we can. Our partners through Denver Transit operators have basically utilized second additional operators on our inline. We have done the same where we've had supervisorial staff serve in that capacity. So we're trying to be very creative, and more specifically in recognizing that we have a third party contractor. We have, implemented liquidated damages, but that doesn't solve the problem at hand. And just in fact had a meeting this afternoon with rail operations staff, specifically the Assistant General Manager of Rail, Dave Jensen, where we had conversations about what we might do going forward to ensure, at least on the inline, whereby we can bring that in-house so we have more autonomy over how we're deploying that service as opposed to being reliant upon a third-party contractor relative to serving as the second crew member. So I just wanted to qualify in reference to the issue that you brought forward, because it's not a scheduling problem that falls within the auspices of Mr. Carter. It spans that. It goes beyond that span, excuse me.
Director Tisdale.
I'm going to say I appreciate that clarification, and that is right. And the messages have said, because no second crew member is available. But nonetheless, if we are aware that we are having those continuing problems with a second crew member, is there a sense that we have, a comfort level that we have, that we're going to be able to provide on the commuter rail operations a second crew member? Or should we take some steps to adjust schedules based upon the fact that we simply aren't able to staff those? And you've addressed that generally already, and I appreciate that. And as I said, I think it's just important that we get the word out to the public that we're doing what we can, because the worst thing is for someone to show up at Union Station and then realize that the next 4 runs are not going to happen.
Point well taken, sir. And we are trying to communicate out, hence that's why we disseminated a media advisory and use other channels as it relates to the impact of people power. But more so oftentimes with the A-line, I too have experienced that where I have been, sitting on a consist berth at a platform and an announcement is being made for a TSO and the TSO doesn't come. So oftentimes we're talking about having an understanding that somebody who's supposed to report isn't there, and we'll know that 3 or 4 minutes before the train is supposed to depart. Needless to say, I'm not trying to offer excuses, but we're trying to be as creative as we can. And I will in turn work with the team as we try to move forward in a direction and be as highly communicative as we possibly can relative to ensuring that we have people readily available. And we really have seen an increase in this. As I received information today, we really saw the impact between December 31st, right on the tail end of the holidays, going into the next couple of weeks. I'm not an epidemiologist, but I see a clear-cut coordination with the Omicron variant.
Thank you, General Manager Johnson. And I believe I read somewhere that that there is an extension on the service to, or they're beginning service now on the A-line at 3 a.m. And I can't recall which day of the week that was. Is that correct?
That is correct. What we did in partnership with Denver International Airport, recognizing that there's frontline employees that needed to start their shifts at 4 a.m. By the time they were to alight a rail vehicle, make it up the escalator and go through security, that they weren't making their clock in time points. And so as we worked in tandem through a partnership, looking at the service span, we just did an adjustment. So we bookended it as it relates to starting just 15 minutes earlier.
And thank you, General Manager, and your team for being sensitive to the workers at DIA, or DEN rather. Director Williams.
Thank you, Chair Rosenthal. I want to go back to the question that Julian asked about the P line in Parker, which apparently is way below normal, meeting its time schedule. And I'm wondering if we have any idea why that is. I know that we are a transit agency, and I just wonder if we have had any feedback on what makes that route so low in terms of meeting its schedule.
I'm sorry, this is Jesse Carter. Chair, if I might answer the question.
Please, just dialogue back and forth. It's
okay. I'll go with that. Director Williams, that's a great question. With any schedule, it's a picture in time. So the last time we actually had an active schedule for the Route P was in 2019, prior to, it being suspended. So normally we do normal maintenance, and that's done throughout the year. and we make small adjustments. Those adjustments have not been made to the Route P and some other routes, and it needed to be adjusted to the travel times that are experienced along Lincoln and on I-25 going north and into the downtown area. It's a little more congested now. It's kind of hard to believe, but it's a little more congested now in terms of operators being able to process in and out of Civic Center Station as well. So there are changes to the traffic patterns and increased time needed for the Route P. So we're going to make those adjustments accordingly, and we're going to pay very close attention to the existing schedule so that it doesn't have a negative impact on our customers using it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chair, I have one more.
By all means.
It's not Jesse. It's just a general comment. I think that everybody knows that we are short-staffed. Everybody is short-staffed. If you go into, well, obviously you're not going into King Soopers, are you? But if you go into Safeway or Burger King or any place else, restaurants, I feel so bad there. Their servers are just obviously waiting on way many more tables than they are accustomed to. And so I think that the public in general understands that we are doing the best we can. I think to General Manager Johnson's credit, that the best thing that I've seen is that the reason for the delay is there. And those are comments that I have heard back from my constituents, that it's never easy to swallow that your trip you're used to has been canceled or that it's going to be half an hour late, but it's easier to understand when the reason is on there. So I wanted to thank the staff for that. That's all I have to say right now. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Director Williams, and also thanking the General Manager and her staff that they are undertaking efforts to do recruitment, offering, I believe it's a $4,000 bonus on signing and other measures to try to attract, drivers and other staff to come work at RTD. So they are doing their best to address that staffing issue. So Director Lewis, perhaps you'd like to have a question or some comments.
I actually would just like to make a comment, Director Tisdale, and really take the opportunity to thank our General Manager regarding your comment for the A-line. So this actually came up. I had a constituent reach out to me, and the perception was that we were canceling our trips because we didn't have TSOs that could check fares, and so that RTD was not operating services because we couldn't check fares, as opposed to what General Manager just shared about the second crew member. And so I just wanted to one thank her publicly because they did change the language within that rider alert so that folks knew that it wasn't a cancellation due to fares, but it was a cancellation due to federal regulation. And so I just wanted to let you know that, because as soon as you said the A-line, and I was like, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. And so I just wanted to say that. And the second thing, this is more, well, it's another comment. The second comment is, I appreciate your comment about being able to bring folks in-house so that you have more autonomy. Maybe that's not the language you use, General Manager, but more autonomy over the individuals in that space. And I do think that it's something that us as a board might consider what that could potentially look like in terms of decreasing the number of contractors that we rely on as an opportunity to increase the staff that we employ within RTD. So it might just be worth considering. Those are all my comments.
Thank you so much, Director Lewis. And, we do get, as directors, a lot of emails with announcements and press releases and things like that. And one that sort of relates to this issue of notification was from yesterday, actually, where RTD is debuting an enhanced service alert system, including text notifications. And not to read the entire press release, but Needless to say that announcing that RTD is moving from one marketing platform, Gov Delivery, to another, Salesforce, to manage subscriptions and send emails, et cetera. So I think, this is something where the general manager and her team are actively working on improvements. And I have to certainly recognize that. Any other, sorry, Director Lewis, your hand is still up. Did you have any other thoughts or, okay. All righty then, in that case, are there any other matters to discuss? Ms. McManus from the board office.
I would just like to note that Director Davidson joined the meeting at 5:55 as part of the record.
Oh, great. Well, Director, you're always welcome. Any other directors would like to chime in who are not on the committee? All righty. Okay, so the next meeting date will be Wednesday, February 9th. Seeing no other discussion, we are now adjourned at 6:44 p.m. on
Other
January
matters?
12th. Oh, my apologies. My apologies. Yes, other matters. Thank you, Director Lewis. Are there any other matters to discuss?
I have one. I don't know if
Go
this
ahead.
is the appropriate committee. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
My
But
apologies.
no, you're fine. When we had the discussion about changing our bylaws, we said that we would have meetings on Tuesdays, but we would, if the meetings ran too long, then we would flow into Wednesdays. And what was in written form, and actually what's happening is there was a meeting yesterday and then a meeting today on Wednesdays. And I guess I want to understand, are we now having our meetings on Wednesdays? Because I have Bible study on Wednesdays.
Yeah, so this committee will meet on Wednesdays. Perhaps Mr. Chair, the Director Busick, or General Counsel Snyder, or who wants to kind of establish that a little bit further. But my understanding is the Finance Committee meets on Tuesday, and this committee will meet on a Wednesday. Neither the twain shall meet. And then on a separate day, we'll have any general full board meeting. That's my understanding.
Thank
If
you.
I may, Mr. Chair, for clarification.
Please do.
The full board voted on the committee structure, which was incorporated into said bylaws, whereby it was agreed that the Finance and Planning Committee would take place on the second Tuesday of the month, and the Wednesday immediately following would have this committee, and on the fourth Tuesday of the month, there would be the standard board meeting. And those meeting times are at 5:30 for those three separate meetings that I outlined. As relates to the Performance Committee, there's going to be discussion amongst those committee members, because that body will meet as required or as necessary. And if in fact there were to be a change, that would have to come full circle relative to having the board collectively discuss and amend bylaws. So I just wanted to qualify that for everybody's edification.
A change for the GMOs, or not for performance, or you're saying for operations?
I'm saying for the other ones, performance is yet to be decided, and that was basically reflected in the action in which the board took. So yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Very good question. Clearing up any confusion on that. Any other matters? My apologies. Any other matters? Okay, seeing none, seeing no other discussion, this meeting is adjourned as of 6:47 p.m. on January 12th of 2022. And thank you to the general manager and all your team and all the members of the public who have assembled tonight. Thank you and have a great night.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks all.